News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
It's now 5:05 on this Monday afternoon as we've made it through the first day of the work week. I'm Will Feelright with your local headlines as we head into hour 2, KVNU Sports People Show. Well, researchers at Utah State University have identified a metric to predict the severity of the state's wildfire season. It's the number of days that exceed 80 degrees. Now, forest science professor Jim Lutz and his team have analyzed over 1,500 Utah wildfires between 1984 and 2021. What they've determined is that 80-degree days consistently dry out vegetation, significantly increasing the likelihood of ignition and rapid fire spread. Now, summer rainfall proves statistically insignificant as a mitigating factor due to its rarity in the state. Now, the study highlights a concerning upward trend. If the current patterns hold, researchers are predicting that Utah could see a 60% increase in burned forest areas and a 130% increase in burned shrublands by the year 2050. Now, despite the escalating risk, though, Lutz emphasized that the situation remains manageable with proper planning and preparation. Meanwhile, one person died yesterday afternoon following a rear-end collision that happened near Magna, prompting some significant traffic delays in the area. Now, the crash occurred at about 12:30 in the westbound lanes of SR 201. Now, according to the Utah Department of Transportation, emergency responders transported one victim to a local hospital in critical condition where they later succumbed to their injuries. Now, authorities have not released the victim's identity or determined the exact cause of death, but the incident forced the closure of both westbound SR 201 and SR 202 as crews investigated that crash. And finally, a teenage boy was critically injured in a shooting that happened at a TRAX train station Friday night, which prompted transit delays as authorities searched for a suspect. Now, the Utah Transit Authority said that the shooting happened at around 9 o'clock at the Meadowbrook TRAX station. Now, early reports indicate that an altercation had broken out between a group of people when a vehicle approached that group at the station. Now, it remains unclear if the shooter fired from inside the car or outside, but the suspect fled the scene and has yet to be located by law enforcement. Now, UTA officials confirmed that the incident did not directly involve any UTA passengers. Following that shooting, though, transit officials had to implement a bus bridge to help travelers get to their final destinations. Well, these clouds have kept things a little cooler temperature-wise as we've been in the mid-60s today. Tonight we'll drop into the mid to low 40s, then be back into the 70s for tomorrow. Looks like we'll top out at around the low 70s for Tuesday. Clouds will start to move out of the area and then warm up Wednesday as we'll be into the mid to high 70s. Thursday and Friday a little cooler, but we'll see those sunny skies continuing. It doesn't look like we're going to see any rain in the forecast through the next 7 days. Weather this hour brought to you by Logan Extermination. Don't let pests and disease kill those trees this year. Call Logan Extermination. They can offer a dormant tree spray to help protect your precious trees. Call them today to get signed up. 752-8450. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU local headlines.
Spring is when everything starts to bloom again, including our confidence. At Bell Sculpt, we help women and men explore body contouring procedures designed around their goals. And for moms who have spent years putting everyone else first, sometimes the best thing you can do is take a moment for yourself. At Bell, your consultation's completely free. It's zero pressure, just options. You can ask questions, explore what's possible, and see what feels right for you. This spring, it's your time to bloom with Bell. Schedule your free consultation today at bellsculpt.fm.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line with the biggest cruise promotion of the year with huge discounts off your cruise fare and free amenities. Sail the 7 seas with Royal Caribbean and Morris Columbus Travel. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for an appointment and let them show you how.
Bring back what you've been been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Hour 2 of today's show. 66 degrees here at the Radio Ranch at 5:10 in the afternoon. Appreciate you being with us. Coming up in this hour of radio, Governor Cox last week held his monthly news conference. Due to some scheduling, Utah State University men's basketball game Friday preempted our show. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, so we're doing it here today. I've got some clips of what the governor had to say. He took questions on everything from this controversy over proposed ICE detention center in Salt Lake, with the city saying that they're a bit bugged by this because they weren't included in any discussions, and there would be water and infrastructure costs for the city to turn this currently empty warehouse into an ICE facility. They feel the city should have been talked to a little bit. Also, the price tag, what the Department of Homeland Security paid for this facility is nearly 8 times what they've been paying everywhere else. So it understandably attracted a lot of attention. There were protests over the weekend, some vandalism, people spray painted on the building and things like that, ICE out. The governor was asked for his thoughts on this. We've got the audio for you. And the governor also spoke to our water situation, the legislative session, and more. We'll get to that. Coming up later on in the hour, Cache Valley farmers were featured in a recent report on rising fuel, diesel fuel mainly, and fertilizer prices due to, previously tariffs, but now tariffs and the war, the U.S. and Israel war in Iran. And some Cache Valley farmers spoke to the Salt Lake Tribune and said, the situation's bad. We're very worried. We'll talk about that coming up later on in the hour. So, kicking things off here, again, Governor Cox held his regular monthly news conference. First one he's held since the end of last year due to the legislative session. And he took questions on a plethora of topics, but there were some key standout moments in which the governor addressed some pressing news issues, the controversy over the ICE detention facility, the legislative session, and, of course, what Utah is doing going ahead, planning for water. In fact, that's where things took, it was a very good-natured, almost state of the state address type return for the monthly news conference, for, again, first one of 2026, until they started talking about water. As soon as water came up, the conversation got dark. Here's what Governor Cox had to say about Utah's, I think at this point, pending drought. The news over the weekend previous that several water basins in Utah were going to have depleted their snowpack in March, today, actually. And the governor was asked, what is the state doing to prep for this, and what can we do long term?
Look, I hope people are enjoying the beautiful weather this week. It's way too early to be having 80-degree weather, and of course the snowpack is a concern. It's been a really fascinating water year in that, on the one hand, we actually have had a good water year. If you go back, the water year starts in October, and if you look at precipitation from October to now, we're really close to normal. It hasn't been bad. The problem is snowpack, and of course our snowpack is at record lows, and most of our reservoir storage comes from snowpack. So, if you're looking for any silver linings, the ground is more saturated than normal. That means that what little snow we have should get to the reservoirs. That's really important instead of going straight into the ground. But we just don't have enough to fill our reservoirs this year. We know that. I think we're sitting at about 68%, which is right around normal for this time of year. But only because we had a couple really good years and we've been conserving well. last year at this time we were at 80%. So that shows you kind of how far down we are right now, and our inability to build up is going to be a problem. So Ben, yes, we are concerned. I anticipate that sometime in the future, not right now, but as we look at what our final reservoir capacity is, and we look at what April and May, what happens there. Those are our two wettest months traditionally, April and May. So we're hoping for a very wet spring and an early monsoon this year. But we have already had conversations about what drought declarations would look like if we get to that point. And I would remind people that all of the decisions around cutbacks happen at the local level. And so we're in constant contact with our water managers all across the state. They know what they need to do they're doing their calculations right now to make sure that we're not releasing too much water from our reservoirs too early. And I do anticipate that there will be restrictions through most of Utah when we get into the summer months.
So Idaho's House Speaker is now advancing a resolution staking claim to developing its share of the Bear River. With this, what happened to that memorandum of understanding that you signed in a pretty public ceremony, and Idaho was supposed to sign it? Now we've got this resolution. Sure. It appears it didn't materialize. So what happened? Well,
it's not. It hasn't materialized yet, and that's the important thing. Again, we have speakers of the House who have been battling each other in both states a little bit. We have a great relationship with our friends in Idaho. I think things ended up in a really good spot here for both of us. As on the gas tax piece where we're working, I so appreciate Speaker Schultz and his great work to put together a bill that actually will increase supply and lower the price of gas for Utahns and for Idahoans and for Nevadans. This matters for all of us. It's good for our country and good for our people, for our consumers. And so I'm excited about that. We will continue to work very closely with Idaho on water. Of course, they have the ability to develop their water. Utah also believes that we have the ability to develop our water, and yet the Great Salt Lake matters from a regional perspective as well. And so that Bear Lake drainage is something we share, and we've always had a great relationship. Still do. We're having conversations with water managers there, conversations with their governor and his team, and conversations with the legislators. So I think we'll all feel better when all the legislative sessions are done and we can get back to working closely together.
Does their efforts, if this comes to pass, does this threaten the Great Salt Lake?
I don't think it threatens it. Again, it's a resolution. We have a lot of work to do on our side, and I'm going to worry more about what Utah's doing than I am what Idaho's doing, and we can do this. And I feel confident that these relationships are much longer lasting than any legislative session.
Governor, again, that was there at the end, the governor referencing that little bit of a fight that broke out between Utah and Idaho when the Speaker of the House said we should eliminate the gas tax and instead tax gas that is exported out of Utah but refined here and exported out of Utah. Idaho, one of the big buyers for that. Idaho Speaker of the House flipped his lid and said, absolutely not. We're not doing this. This would be a tax on the residents of Idaho, and said if Utah goes ahead with this, Idaho will take steps to start claiming more water in the Bear River area before it trickles down to the Utah area. Now, obviously, you can't really do that unless you can build a whole bunch of dams and things like that, which would be probably publicly unpopular. But it's an interesting back and forth. And as you can see, the Idaho not backing down on that. The governor saying that he's not concerned, that this is actually an issue of, the agreements have not been made yet, not that they won't be made between the state of Utah and Idaho, something he promised would be taken care of during the legislative session. But mixed bag before his comments on that about Utah's water situation. As he said, ground pretty saturated. We had a really wet fall, and snowpack was, not bad, but then it got warm really fast. Some areas it's already gone. Other areas it's going to be gone months sooner than it should be. And the governor saying, yes, we're pretty concerned about this. But that they believe that, increased conservation efforts and more from residents and agriculture and business, that it isn't necessarily time to panic yet. But the governor also said in a follow-up question, if things stay as warm and dry as they are right now into July, we could be looking at some pretty severe water use restrictions here in Utah. Finally, on a question from a member of the media on what he's hearing from scientists here in the state, including, we had a conversation recently with Mr. Meyer of Utah State University's Climate Center asking the same question. Is this the new normal in Utah? The governor said, a good way to look at this actually is that the snowpack that we kind of got used to enjoying was actually not the normal. The normal is what we're experiencing now. And so the governor's saying we need to start thinking about how we redesign and rethink our water use entirely, because these drought years are actually, if you look at the full weather history of the state since we started keeping the records, these drought years are actually more of the norm. We just forgot that for a couple of decades. So we'll see where it goes. On the other side, the governor also responded to questions about a controversial ice facility that, if it goes through, would be located in Salt Lake City, and his thoughts on the legislative session, what he thought the high points and low points were, as he issued very few, hardly any vetoes or even veto threats this year. We'll talk about it right after this.
Low snowpacks have us all nervous. How can you conserve water? This is Mark Anderson at Anderson Seed and Garden. Here are a few tips. Switch from a sprinkler to a soaker hose or a drip system. Make adjustments to your lawn watering and maintenance, including mowing your grass taller, and use a water-conserving product like Hydrochain to increase your absorption by 50%. Mulches save water by reducing evaporation and cools plants. For more tips and advice about yard and garden care, come to Anderson Seed and Garden, 69 West Center in Logan.
We could all use a little extra cash this time of year. Bring in all that old metal you have laying around and we'll pay you for it. Hi, this is Chris White, local manager at Valley Recycling. That's what we do at Valley Recycling. We'll pay you for most anything metal, from empty soda cans to old cars and appliances. For the really big jobs, we can help with our fleet of trucks and containers. We take all your scrap metal and give you cash. Mention this ad and get an extra 5 cents per pound for your aluminum cans, offering all the best prices for your metal recycling. Valley Recycling, 145 North, 10th West in Logan.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello. Is TJ Nielsen there?
Yeah, that's me.
Chief Nielsen, I was just wondering if you could use free lunch today.
Oh, well.
We like to recognize heroes once a week, and someone reached out to us and told us about the years that you have served as the fire chief over there in Plymouth.
Yeah, okay.
So what made you want to get into firefighting?
It's just trying to give back to the community.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really nice of you.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. By the end of last week, Governor Cox had signed 74 of the bills passed in the legislative session into law. You can find a list of the bills actually at governor.utah.gov right on the main page. He's under pressure to veto some digital instructional materials legislation that was passed during the legislative session. He's getting some pressure to veto online age verification bill that was passed that critics say will create a registry of children that can be exploited. The governor so far hasn't said whether he will or not. He only has this week to decide finally on if there will be any vetoes or not. During last week's monthly news conference, the governor implied that there likely would not be any, saying that it wasn't, he didn't get everything he wanted. There were some things that passed that he wishes wouldn't. There were some things that died on the vine that he was very glad did. But the governor said overall the legislative session is one Utahns should be pretty excited about.
It was not a perfect one. They never are. We certainly didn't get everything right. We never do. But we made real meaningful progress on several issues that are the most important to Utahns. And we did it in a way that I think Utahns can feel good about. This was, honestly, as I've said before, my favorite session since becoming governor, and maybe my favorite in the 14 years that I've been directly involved in this process. The House, the Senate, and our team in the executive branch worked very closely together, early, often, and in good faith. We didn't always agree, but when there were concerns, people came together, worked through them, and made the bills better. And that truly matters. At the end of the day, that's how you get better outcomes, not just for one party or one perspective, but for the entire state. Now, I want to give you just a little sense of scale. This was a big session. They all seem to be these days. More than 1,000 bills were introduced, and we ended up with 542 that passed, less than the past couple years. So that's a major improvement. It's also a lot of work, and behind each of those bills are real people with real problems and real attempts to move the state forward. And while there were lots of debate about individual bills, and there should be, I think the bigger story is that we really moved the ball forward in some important areas. Let me just highlight a few of those. First, literacy. We know that if a child isn't reading proficiently by third grade, everything else gets harder. That's why I'm so encouraged by SB 241 and the continued focus on early literacy. This is foundational work, it's long-term work, and it's going to make a difference in the lives of so many of our young people. Second, homelessness. This has been a priority for us for several years, and this year we made tremendous progress. For the first time, we have ongoing funding and a more coordinated approach to addressing high utilizers and the chronically homeless. This is going to be a landmark moment in how we respond to this challenge. There's certainly still more to do, and we're going to keep working closely with our local partners, but I'm grateful that the legislature stepped up and took this so seriously. Third, protecting kids online. This is something we've been leading as a state, from school device restrictions, bell to bell, to broader efforts around digital skills and online safety. We're trying to help kids build healthier habits with technology, and we were successful this session. We also took steps with targeted advertising and social media policy to start addressing the broader ecosystem our kids are growing up in. We're not going to get this exactly right on the first try, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. Fourth, housing and infrastructure. We all know that housing affordability is a top priority and one of the biggest challenges that we face as a state and a nation right now for Utah families. With HB 68 and other efforts, we're creating better coordination at the state level, including a new housing division and a statewide housing coordinator. We're also continuing to invest in infrastructure, transportation, planning, and the systems that allow us to grow responsibly. Because if we don't build, we know that we will continue to fall behind.
Again, that was Governor Cox talking about some of the highlights he saw during the legislative session, saying, we didn't get everything perfect. We never do. But he feels that it's been a very good legislative session, or was a very good legislative session. Governor also, during last week's monthly news conference, took questions about the news story reporting Department of Homeland Security purchasing a warehouse in Salt Lake City that they intend to convert into an ICE detention facility. Concerns about its location, right, in an industrial area with a lot of businesses around, how those businesses would be affected. It's drawn protests already at the location that is still just right now an empty warehouse that's now owned by the federal government. And the price tag, they paid 8 times more than they've paid for warehouses in comparative markets. Everyone wanting to know what is up with this. Why was the city not consulted? City leaders have said they hadn't heard a word about this happening, even though they'd be on the hook to supply infrastructure upgrades to turn the facility into a housing facility or holding facility for detainees. A lot of controversy, to say the least. Governor Cox was asked what he thought about all of this and said,
anything to ICE enforcement in Utah. We have had conversations about. I will say, and I think you saw this. I've been so busy reviewing bills that I'm a little behind, so I apologize. I do need to go back and watch some of the confirmation hearings, the committee hearings on Senator Mullins, the potentially new, if confirmed, director of the Department of Homeland Security. But I think from what little feedback I was able to get, that there was certainly a different tone or a different approach. I think you've seen that from the administration. I think they were concerned. I think the president admitted that he was concerned about what was happening, and he said as much when he met with governors, when the NGA was back in Washington D.C., Republicans and Democrats. He said he was concerned about what had happened in Minnesota, and that there needed to be a different approach. So I don't know that those two things are tied together. And again, the new director, the new secretary, will have his own, I think, his own ideas about enforcement and what that should look like. And so we really just don't know what that looks like going forward. And I hope to have those conversations and be able to fill you in on more once we do.
What about
Again, that was Governor Cox responding to the story of an ICE detention facility being built in Salt Lake City, a story that broke last week. The governor saying that he believes that even the president has been concerned about some of the things that have played out, shootings in Minnesota of protesters and things like that by ICE administration official policy, or that was blamed on ICE official policy. The governor says he thinks that a change in leadership that has just occurred will settle things down and people will be more comfortable with where things are going. As to it being located in Salt Lake City, the governor said, look, this is something that actually we've been talking about at the legislative level for 5 or 6 years, back in even to the second Obama administration, possibly was the earliest conversation that the state had about the need for a specific detention facility for those arrested here in Utah to take some of the pressure off the county jails. So the governor also said he wanted to remind everyone that none of this is a done deal and conversations are happening. So if you want to watch the full 45-minute Governor's Monthly News Conference from last week, I've linked to it on our Facebook page. And we'll be back on the other side of these headlines, talk about Utah farmers that were spotlighted in a recent report on struggling farmers amid rising prices due to tariffs and fertilizer supply due to the U.S.-Israel war in Iran. Cache Valley farmers said, we're hurting. And we'll talk about it after these headlines. With KVNU's We'll Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. There's a Kentucky truck driver right now who is stranded in Tremonton trying to turn a tragedy into a triumph. Now, the man's name is Stephen Howard, and he's turning his major breakdown into a viral event. Now, Howard was transporting boats to Oregon in his 2002 Freightliner Classic when a sudden drop in fuel efficiency and steaming engine had forced him to pull over in a local Sinclair gas station. Now, with the permission of the owners, Howard is now performing an estimated $10,000 to $15,000 engine overhaul directly right there in the parking lot. Now, operating about 1,800 miles from his Kentucky home, the owner of Big Belly and Son Trucking is documenting the extensive repairs on his family-friendly YouTube channel. Now, his wife Ruthie said the channel has garnered roughly 14,000 subscribers, with viewership noticeably spiking since the breakdown began. Now, Howard anticipates spending up to 2 more weeks in Tremonton, but still maintains a positive outlook that he'll be able to get the truck running again and get back on the road. Let's hope he does. Well, a 23-year-old man died over the weekend Saturday morning in a single-vehicle rollover crash that happened just north of Preston. Now, according to the Idaho State Police, the crash occurred at about 9:45 a.m. along Highway 91 near mile marker 13. Now, investigators said that a 22-year-old man from Cumming, Georgia, was driving a Toyota Highlander southbound when he went off the roadway. Now, the driver overcorrected, causing the SUV to roll over a guardrail. Now, the 23-year-old passenger, also from Cumming, Georgia, succumbed to his injuries at the scene. Emergency responders, meanwhile, transported the driver by ground ambulance to a local hospital with undisclosed injuries. Authorities confirmed that both men were wearing seatbelts at the time of the crash. The accident remains under investigation. And finally, in an effort to try to increase government transparency, Franklin County commissioners have begun live streaming their bi-weekly meetings for local residents. Now, the initiative was launched last January and allows the public now to tune in to county business by Zoom. Now, while Idaho state law does not mandate the broadcast, officials voluntarily adopted the practice in hopes of helping citizens stay informed about local government operations. Now, Commissioner Robert Swenston noted that while current viewership remains low, their hope is the audience will grow as people get used to the new service. Now, the commission meets on the second and fourth Mondays of each month, typically running from about 9 a.m. to noon. Now, residents can access the stream by finding the Zoom passcode and meeting agendas posted on the county's website. Of course, the county's move follows Preston City, which began streaming its municipal meetings on Facebook back in October 2019. Logan City, meanwhile, and others also stream their meetings on YouTube and other social media channels. Well, we've had some clouds this afternoon, and that's kept temperatures in the mid-60s today. Tonight, we'll see overnight temperatures drop into the low 40s, then be back into the low 70s for Tuesday, mid to high 70s for Wednesday. As the clouds will start to clear out, we'll see some more sunshine, and it looks like it's going to remain sunny Thursday and into Friday. Overall, though, even with a few clouds, doesn't look like we're going to see any rain through the next 7 days of the forecast. And speaking of rain, with very little rain and not a lot of snow, your lawn's going to need a little extra help this year, and that's why you want to call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN. They can help strengthen your grass with proper fertilization and help take care of those weeds, too. Call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com. And I'm Will Feelright with your Monday night headlines.
ABC News, I'm Stephanie Officer. Airport leaders have written a letter to Congress imploring lawmakers end the partial government shutdown and immediately fund the DHS. TSA workers have gone over a month with partial pay, a week with none. More and more agents are calling out sick, and that's leading to long airport security lines. Andres Campos was flying out of Atlanta.
Oh my God, this is insane. I mean, I've never experienced anything like this. It's crazy. It's insane. I mean, I've never seen an airport like this.
A new federal ruling is setting clearer regulations on how AI can be used in the legal system. Earlier this month, a judge in the Southern District of New York ruled exchanges with AI chatbots are not protected by attorney-client privilege and could become evidence. Forensic attorney and scientist Rory Saphir says it sets a precedent.
There are circumstances where you could use AI and still have confidentiality, but not the way that the public kind of generally uses it.
This is ABC News.
Did you know you can cut your Rocky Mountain power bill by 40 to 50% without a single solar panel? With the new time of use rates, power is 4.5 times more expensive in the evening, but cheap during the day. At Greenbox Solar, we install smart home batteries that charge up when electricity is cheap, then power your home during peak hours. Solar is totally optional and can be added in the future, but savings are guaranteed. Drop by Greenbox Solar's showroom in South Logan to see the hardware for yourself. Visit our website at poweredbygreenbox.com.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. Strong families are the bedrock of our communities. That's why I'm focused on bringing Utah's core values to Washington and advancing pro-family legislation. I helped permanently increase the child tax credit, create investment accounts for children, and incentivize employers to provide better access to childcare, benefiting families and setting up our next generation for success. As a father of 4 boys, family is everything, and I am continuing to work on solutions to make raising a family in America more affordable. To learn more about what I am doing to advocate for you and your family in Congress, sign up for my weekly e-newsletter at blakemore.house.gov and follow along on social media at Rep. Blake Moore. If your family needs help navigating a federal agency or has questions about what I'm working on, please give my office a call at 801-625-0107. Happy to also help coordinate U.S. Capitol tours, take your comments, and provide legislative updates at any time. It is our honor to serve you and your family in Congress. Thank you. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
It's Truck Month at West Motor Company. And around here, buying a truck still starts with a handshake.
West Motor Truck Month.
For over 80 years, West Motor has been doing business the right way. Straight talk and serious savings. We're talking up to $12,000 off heavy-duty trucks and up to $11,000 off half-tons. Plus, get 0% financing on select Ford trucks. Ford, Ram, built to haul, built to work. And if West Motor doesn't have exactly what you're looking for, they'll find it. West Motor Truck Mall. Come experience the West Motor difference.
Northern Utah. Voting is officially open in the Best of Northern Utah contest, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. Think about the business that always takes care of you. The places you tell your friends about. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com and vote. Gold and silver winners will be decided in over 200 categories, and your vote helps choose them. Vote now at bestofnorthernutah.com.
Best of Northern Utah.
When you take a walk around your neighborhood and notice all the things that make it feel like home, one thing might be a little harder to notice because somewhere tucked in that neat row of houses is hunger. Over 30 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming from. At Albertsons Companies and Safeway Foundations, we are on a mission to provide 1 billion meals by 2030 because everyone should be welcome at the table. Learn more at nourishingneighbors.com. Let's break the cycle of hunger together.
Welcome back to KVN News for the people. Agriculture families have been kind of having a rough little bit of it. Some of the tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump have hit those in farming pretty hard. The federal government, Congress, talking at the urging of the president about doing something to kind of offset the costs of those increased prices on certain things due to the tariffs, but Congress has been pretty slow to act on a lot of that. And I was surprised to see some of the farmers spotlighted in a recent report from the Salt Lake Tribune. We're right here in Cache Valley. The story is how tariffs and increased prices due to the U.S.-Israel war in Iran are sort of a double whammy for them. I didn't know this, but apparently, so most of the talk about the closing, partial closing by Iran in response to the U.S.-Israel attacks on Iran, once that war launched, Iran immediately took steps to kind of take control of the Strait of Hormuz, and that obviously impacted oil prices. We saw I think we're up 40% gas price wise here in Utah in a week. In 2 weeks. So, that's how most of us are experiencing this. I had no idea that this is also impacting fertilizer. Now I did some digging before you panic. As far as fertilizer in the stores, small amounts of fertilizer that you see in retail stores for your gardens and flower pots and things like that. Probably not going to see much of an effect on those. Could, but probably not. Depends on how long this goes on and how long Iran retains control of restricting, ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. So, but large growers, especially those in the alfalfa world, are going to be impacted by this. And Salt Lake Tribune had a story about this. Soaring fuel and fertilizer prices are a double whammy hitting Utah farmers, already facing tight times. And first featured farmer is from Cache Valley. Salt Lake Tribune story goes into the history of and the experience of over the last couple of years of Jared and Michael Clausen, who run a 1,500-acre farm in Hiram. It's a little south of Hiram, actually. They mainly grow alfalfa, they told the Tribune, and they have been already struggling due to the strains, they said, of both the tariffs previously and now more recently, the United States and Israel bombing campaign in Iran that started late last month. Diesel prices, alongside gas, have spiked 40% in the last two and a half weeks, and The Clausens say they use around 1,000 gallons a week during their peak alfalfa growing seasons. Fertilizer prices, though, even worse, up nearly 70% since this same time last year. Now, the Clausens said, they told the Tribune they caught a little bit of a break there because the supplier, who they've worked with loyally for years and years, has agreed, for them at least, to keep the prices where they're at, despite rising cost for the supplier. And the price increases are, quote, exacerbating the financial condition of a lot of farms, said Ryan Larson, who's an agricultural economist here in our own backyard at Utah State University. Larson said we're in a bad situation if this continues too long. It was already precarious. Farmers are we're already looking at planting crops that use less fertilizer and rotating a lot of crops, maybe, intentionally making less money this year to keep their costs down due to the tariffs. Now you apply rising fuel costs, fertilizer costs, or even, Larson points out, if the war in Iran goes on long enough, you could actually see a fertilizer shortage start to happen. So he said a lot of farmers are already making contingency plans to grow different crops that you don't need fertilizer, skip fertilizer altogether this year, and even though that means for sure they'll be making less money. We spoke with Utah Farm Bureau President Val J. Rigby, who lives in northern Cache Valley himself, several weeks ago here on the show, and he talked to us about that a lot of farmers were changing their crops up to avoid using fertilizer in general. That was just due to the tariffs. Now with a possible fertilizer shortage and increased fertilizer costs by up to 70%. Again, that's mind-blowing. The Clausens say unless things change, he said, me and my brothers, Jared Clausen told the Tribune, we're just going to be forced out of this business. He said our farm margins are already really tight and many farmers are underwater, and so we don't have the ability to absorb shocks like this to the system. In some areas of Utah, the Farm Bureau reports in the Tribune story that things are a little more rosy. And farming, by the way, is still a huge part. I think it's like $3.5 billion in economic activity, according to the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute report, which I think the last one they did of those was in 2024. So it's been a while, but still a lot. And it probably, if it's shrunk at all, it hasn't shrunk much yet. But I remember from that report, and the Salt Lake Tribune includes this in the story, that most of that economic activity, more of that economic activity is coming from livestock and poultry products. Cattle sales, things like that. Dairy is counted into that as well, milk. And the numbers have been steadily increasing. Livestock has been largely profitable, for Utah farmers. But, feed growth is where farmers are feeling the biggest hit, which of course will eventually make its way into those livestock markets as well with so the Farm Bureau estimates about a 2-year delay. They can estimate that based off of what happens in drought years. If you have drought years and you get a bad feed crop, how does that affect a year or 18 months later the price of beef? So they can estimate this pretty accurately based on trends in the past. And so they said the livestock and poultry industries here in Utah are not struggling as hard right now, but because the feed growers are struggling right now due to the war and the tariffs before the war, that's going to trickle into the livestock markets within the next year and a half. So revenue from crops decreasing does have a tendency to spread. So one example in the Salt Lake Tribune, hay, which is alfalfa hay, Utah's most prevalent crop. A lot of it is exported, by the way. Averaged about $290 a ton in 2022. And 1 year later, it was $220 a ton, according to the USDA data. And last year was down to $180 a ton. So alfalfa, other types of hay, so it's bad. The Clausens point out that luckily with alfalfa, they don't have to use much fertilizer, compared to corn or things like that, which, by the way, Utah also harvests a lot of. Utah, 72,000 acres of corn were grown in Utah in 2022, the Tribune reports. I didn't know that. But many farmers, even that year, were at or below break-even points. This was, again, before the fertilizer prices, just due to the changes in the market, the tariffs, and a bunch of other things all considered. So the Larson from Utah State University said, the farmers are going to lose money this year all around. And a lot of them might not be here next year because of that. So Utah Farm Bureau President Val J. Rigby said that he told the Tribune that, a lot of farmers do have the ability to just not plant this year or plant other crops. Some don't. He said it's problematic because Utah farms already don't produce enough food for our state, for all of our citizens. So for the consumer, this means we're going to be importing a lot more, and what we import is going to be at a higher price as well. Rigby said they don't often have the ability, farmers don't have the ability to pass on the costs directly. So as retail diesel jumps, it's up $2.50 over just last month. Some farmers said, for that farmer, Rigby said, that's coming right out of that farmer's pocket. It's complicated. The prices are often set in these markets. So, interestingly enough, also including this little detail about sheep farmers. Sheep farmers ready to take lambs out to summer ranges are anticipating much higher costs to transport their flocks, which is done largely via, hiring independent trucking companies. Because herding isn't really much of an option for them in most places anymore. And he said, so that's going to impact wool prices and even meat in those arenas as well. So Utah farmers have weathered a few price increases before, Rigby said, but what concerns him as president of the Utah Farm Bureau, Rigby says, never before at this level. They're dealing with chronic water shortages, tariffs from President Donald Trump's administration, and now rising costs to fuel and fertilizer due to the war in Iran. Larson at Utah State University said some farms will be going out of business because profit margins were already too narrow. A sad picture painted, and I'm only a third of the way through the article here. It gets a lot deeper into some of this, including how some of these markets work. If you'd like to read it, I've linked to the Salt Lake Tribune report featuring some farmers from here in Cache Valley saying they're struggling right now and worried about the future. It's linked on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
I'm Jace Allen, founder of Allen Law. My focus has always been helping families protect what matters most through meaningful estate planning. I've now joined forces with attorney mediator Chris Guyman of the Conflict Resolution Center and seasoned litigator Sam Goebel to form the Allies Law Firm. Whether you're planning ahead, resolving marital conflict, or facing a courtroom battle, we bring strategy, strength, and experience together under one roof. Because when it matters most, you deserve the Allies Law Firm. Call the Allies Law Firm today. We plan, we fight, you win.
Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce invites you to attend the 2026 Awards Gala on Thursday, March 26th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Enjoy a wonderful evening celebrating a growing Cache Valley with elegant dining and recognition of local outstanding businesses and individuals who not only lead in our community but also serve. Don't miss the Cache Chamber 2026 Awards Gala Thursday, March 26th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Reserve your seat at cachechamber.com. That's cachechamber.com or call 752-2161.
You've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You have to carefully monitor your health for the rest of your life. And you have an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Cut. Take two. Action.
You've been diagnosed with a new purpose, to fight for the amazing life you made for yourself. To look that risk of heart disease square in the face and say, no, not me. You've been given a new opportunity to live. Get started at NoDiabetesByHeart.org.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
If you're over the age of 40, get ready to roll your eyes a lot. But this has been an interesting one to follow, and it's not done, but it's being referred to as the Great Conservative Podcaster War. Tensions were strained between some of the top money-making podcasters, and this is huge money, by the way, on YouTube, Spotify, places like that. The names of the top ones, well, you have Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck, who have kind of stayed out of it for the most part, this war. But the top money makers are actually Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and Candace Owens, who, I'll be honest with you, Candace Owens seems to have completely lost her mind. She believes there is a very in-depth conspiracy behind the political assassination of Charlie Kirk here in Utah last year. In fact, she goes so far as to claim that Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, is involved in it. It's wild. The rest of them aren't so out there, but you may not agree with them. You might agree with any of them or some of them. Anyway, what started this? Well, basically the war in Iran is what was proved to be the breaking point, but it actually started with debates over our support for Israel. We're supporting them enough, too much. Tucker Carlson, for example, has basically said that President Trump is letting Israel make decisions for us, and we shouldn't do that. Some of the others have gone further along those lines. Others have pulled back. Ben Shapiro, for example, said, that this is a smart war and we should support the president's decision. So, generally stuff you'd see people online arguing about anyway. What makes this different is they're going all out. Mark Levin said of Megyn Kelly last week, she's emotionally unhinged, lewd, and petulant. Kelly herself said of Ben Shapiro, your moral preening, priggish lectures and holier-than-thou judgments are the reason you're losing fans. Ben Shapiro then posted on X, Megyn Kelly is a coward. Piers Morgan is also a coward. Piers Morgan is also a coward because Piers Morgan had jumped into it. Anyway, what's different about this is it's not teenagers fighting on Twitter. These are people who are in and of themselves multi-million-dollar industries in name alone, which begs the question, which the Deseret News actually has a great write-up on today, is this grift or growth? Are these people building the conservative movement, helping the Republican Party, helping the Republicans win elections in the future, or are they just out to create controversy online, make a quick buck by monetizing YouTube channels and Twitter accounts, and then bail, leaving the Republican Party hollowed out? Because guess who's really loving all of this? Democrats. It's a great question. I don't have the answer to this. I do know Deseret News has some great reporting on this. They report that a 60-second host read from Tucker Carlson costs you $45,000. And you have to commit to $450,000 of spending before he'll even do a single one for $45,000. That is a lot of money. Megyn Kelly, for her part, she has a deal on her podcast, basically where you can get a deal for $25,000. She'll mention your product, but you also have to commit to her mentioning your product for up to a year, guaranteeing her a significant amount of money per product read. This is wild stuff. It's not the first time, political commentary has been monetized to eyebrow-raising numbers. But what's interesting to me about this is that, again, a lot of people are asking, do these people really care about the conservative movement or the Republican Party's electoral chances, or is this just money-making for them? Because increasingly, it seems like, so one of the conspiracy theories going around online about this is that they all actually really like each other, and they're picking these fights online because it gets people rallied up, and then they can further monetize their shows and split the costs afterwards. Now, I don't think that's happening because they've all registered their businesses independently and filed their taxes independently. But I get why people are thinking that. It does, at a certain point, almost take on a ridiculous level of controversy. And then when that controversy starts to die down, the big influencers find something else. And, I can't answer the question, but Deseret News has a great write-up about it. The title of Deseret News, profile on these big conservative podcasters and the big podcaster war, it says, do warring podcasters pose a problem for the Republican Party or just for each other? It's a really good question. We'll see. Just keep an eye on this one. But, Okay, the 40-year-olds and up, you can stop rolling your eyes now. I'm done talking about online influencers and the great podcaster wars. Although, they do have some influence. They can turn out votes or depress votes with a tweet in certain areas, especially local races. So, it's wild out there. One to keep an eye on for sure. That's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.